show, everybody. I am here with my good friend Elijah, aka Eli Goodall, and we're gonna talk about music today and talk about making a record. Eli,
yeah,
you live in Bend, Oregon.
Yeah.
Give us a quick tidbit about Bend, Oregon. What's it like living in Bend? What's Bend like?
Oh, a tidbit. It's really strange to have been here. I mean, I was born here. I lived in Portland for a bit, but I've been back for eight years. Playing music in Bend is strange. We have a really great community of artists, which includes musicians, but we tend to produce, and I think that's slowly changing, which is great, but we tend to produce very specific types of music, which I do not fall under the umbrella of.
That's a very political answer. Mm-hmm. I like it. You're very kind to.
Yeah. We do, and we have some great bands in town. But most of it tends to be, I mean, the big shows that we have when people come through it's bluegrass. I think we've been doing a little more EDM. It's pretty rare to get good indie shows. It's really rare to get good experimental stuff.
But yeah, you try to isolate or understand like what the music tone of a city is or what the vibe of a city is. I would say it's either really difficult to say that about Bend, Oregon, the music scene, or it's not. It's very easy, and it's just pretty. It's party music. It's come on out and have a good time. We got bluegrass. We got
who cares? Who cares what's playing?
Funk band covers.
Some drinks. And
yes. So with that said, we just heard "Creation Myths" off your new record, the single you just dropped. How do you describe your music? So if somebody who's never heard it before just listened to that sample, how would you describe it to somebody?
It falls into the category of like experimental rock and maybe experimental pop. There's a lot of, I feel like, pretty accessible elements to it, but it doesn't come in an easily digestible format always.
I've heard that a lot, experimental. So for somebody who's not in music, for like the 9-to-5er who loves music and it fuels their soul, it gives them life, but when we say experimental, what is that? Experimental
tends to mean that you're bringing in a lot of different elements in the instrumentation, in the way that you write your songs, the kind of melodies and progressions you're including, and then you start to get more technical with time signature and things like that. But you're taking these different elements that maybe don't go together often, but you found a way to harness them, and you kind of you've found your sound by bringing together all these separate elements and combining them.
The ingredients, a different set. Yeah. Eli's also a local chef, very good chef, highly recommended. And sometimes we've talked about experimental cooking.
Fusion.
Fusing.
But it's heavy fusion. It's not like, oh, it's New American and Japanese. It's like, oh, I'm gonna take Japanese umami and combine that with like tapas. I use this method of cooking and these flavors, and
I like that. So congrats, you just finished a record.
Yeah.
Is it your first record?
The weird, it's the first one is This Island Earth. Okay. The weird thing about finishing a record is, take your top 5 favorite bands, and it's probably true about all of them. You finish a record, and then you sit on the record. So the record is like the egg has been laid, but the egg's not going to hatch. As far as having the finished product in your hands and then having to sit on it, kind of like a secret, you can like give people little crumbs here and there. I haven't had to sit on it that long.
Okay, I think that is something that most people don't understand in the process of making a record. Is once it's finished, once it's mastered, it's clean, it's recorded, you've got it in digital format or whatever. By the way, it is on Spotify right now.
It is, yeah.
A couple tracks, right?
Yeah, two singles off the album. Yeah.
But then there's a whole other process to what are you going to do with this?
I think I'm lucky to only have had to sit on it for 6 months. A lot of bands, you sit on it for a year, so you finish the record, and there's definitely a feeling of elation that, oh, it's done, it's finished. I feel so satisfied, and then it's that last little bit of satisfaction, which is then getting to let it go and put it out there and let people hear it, is delayed immensely.
That's fucking weird, dude.
It's really
kind of weird.
And I mean, obviously, if you're doing things independently, you don't have to do it that way.
It's different art. Like your wife is an artist. She paints a picture.
Yeah.
And then immediately she can scan that picture and do whatever. It's off to the presses.
But who knows how? Like, what if she did? So she just did this zodiac chart, and she hyped it up a little bit. But what if she'd spent a year-long finished the piece, and it would it have done?
Yes.
Wait, I don't know.
Exactly.
We don't. It's the way that most music is run nowadays. So it's very formulaic, and I don't know. It does feel like after doing this for 6 months, it does feel like there's a lot of room for innovation in how stuff
in
is
the process.
released, and
it's wide open.
It's
wide open.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just heard Creation Myths. Take us through that song, and then give us like a little inspiration on how that song came together and how a song comes together. You know how I don't think a lot of people understand. Do you have the poetry in the lyrics? Do you have the prose first? Does the melody? Do you wake up with it in your mind? Like, take us through Creation Myths and how a song gets put together.
I could probably remember a few of the specific things about Creation Myths, and then pairing up. But it's difficult because so much of this record and then the two that follow, because I'm in the middle of writing those also. So much of it is, like I said, it's this process where I'm like, am I lucky, or is my brain doing something very strange that I don't understand?
I'm a weirdo and art is happening and
without me realizing it.
I like what you said. You dream up this big story like this, and I've listened to all of this record, and you have this big kind of story arc, this big, like you called it, a theme or a concept, and it kind of guides you in the writing process because you've got this vision, and then you're fitting into the big screenplay, the big script, all your little acts and all your scenes, and that's what these different tracks are. Listening to this record, you're describing it like some of these songs you're going to hear something different every time. You're gonna dig into it.
Yeah, I'm a big there's two terms. So there's either headphone candy is the term, where stuff is always coming out, especially if you're listening on headphones, or some people call them earworms, which is significantly more disgusting.
Creepy.
But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that's usually my favorite too.
Yeah.
Things are always coming out.
You talked early when you were making this record about doing some field recordings and putting in some sounds of nature, crazy industrial sounds, stuff that you would just go out on hikes and collect. That comes across very clearly in this record. I mean, some people will say, what is this? Did he manufacture these sounds? There's multiple different species of bird noises.
Yeah, there's a lot of
animals. What was that experience?
There's one weird animal, and then there's a lot of birds.
The growl of a lizard.
Yeah. It was. I have these massive sound libraries of things that I've recorded or field recordings that I've gotten, and I'm always kind of sourcing those for some of the more interesting sounds. What happened is that a lot of times I'm in a space, and obviously over the last couple years I've been thinking about these albums a lot, and so when I'm in a space and I hear something and it makes me think of the album or something that I could put on the album, I tend to just record it. So I'm grabbing the birds or the waves or whatever the sound happens to be, and then I'm cataloging it, and I'm going back and I'm being like, when I was in this place, I thought of this song and I recorded this thing. So let's see what. And a lot of my writing process for the music kind of starts from a score standpoint. There will be times that I like, oh, I have this hook. How do I include it in a song, or this little kind of loopy thing here? But for this record and the two following, the way that it usually happens is I'll have like an image or a feeling or a very specific, like this song needs to communicate this kind of part of the story arc right here, what's happening. And I'll take those field recordings and those sounds that I had attached that I thought of this song and then tracked it, and I'll kind of start writing the song from the field recording. Like I'll play it and I'll listen to it, whatever the ambience is that's going on, and then be like, okay, what's going to come into this?
That might even be the starter, the initial thrust of the song.
Yeah, or the end, or maybe it keeps cropping up in the middle. There's been a few where I've done that and then ended up yanking the whole carpet out from underneath it once I built it. I write very like a composer. It's like everything that I'm looking at, I'm usually looking at in layers, kind of like orchestra. So while I'm not always using the traditional instruments you would find in an orchestra, I'm making my own electronically out of samples and making these crazy sounds, and then I can pitch them out.
I like that. I think that's a great way for someone to go into one of your shows too, is to say there's much composition here. Like, like it's good to look at it that way. You're getting, because on the record it does seem like there's 50 different instruments and sounds and vocals and harmonies. There is this big, grand kind of scope to it.
Yeah.
Thank you for breaking that down. I want to just transition just to talking a little bit about you as we close this out. As an artist, what's the most rewarding thing that comes out when you finish a record? You know, what is a feel or the food that you feed yourself from this? Or give us like some understanding of the reward you get from this. You put aside all monetary reward, all applause from the audience.
Yeah. It's not the biggest, but one of the bigger is that you're actually, it's manufactured. You're doing it to yourself. So one of the biggest feelings is relief. Like, thank God it's done. What a harrowing 2 years that was of like really grinding, especially the last 6 months of making a record, like really grinding it out. Including, and I think there are some people that take a lot more time than I did, and there are some people that take a lot less time than I did too. And for whatever reason you fall on that side, I know why I did it the way that I did it. I like to give myself, you know, if I really crunch into it for a month, I like to give myself, you know, like 10 days away from like not listening to the, you know, and that's adding time. But when you're finally done, there is a sense of accomplishment, but that sense of accomplishment is definitely mingled with the relief of like, oh, it's done.
I think that's a perspective that a lot of people don't consider. You almost make it sound like you dug this trench and you're done. You're done doing this labor.
Yeah,
like you can rest now.
Yeah, and it's totally, it's like digging the trench. But the thing is that, and whether everyone else. You could call it treasure, but the treasure kind of makes it subjective to the mentality of the mass. Like, does everyone else agree that this is treasure too? But it's treasure for you, which in the end is the most important thing with creativity. If you don't value it, why is anyone else going to? But, you know, if I didn't dig the trench and get down there and find the thing that I was looking for, I could gloss it over and escape from it, but in the back of my brain, it's always going to be nagging at me that I didn't dig down there, I didn't look for it, I didn't find it, and so, you know, based off what I said, the argument comes up: why would you do that to yourself? Why not just don't make music?
Yeah.
Just cook or just do something easier. Making music, especially the way that we make music right now as a culture. It happens in moments and at live shows, and you can make a song by yourself in your bedroom, and that's great. But if you go to make a record and release it and try and put it out there so as many people as possible can take it in and have an experience with it, it's grueling. But if I didn't do it, it would eventually turn into misery, the not doing it. So it's much better to like slog through it and put in the work. And it doesn't mean that there's joy in it too, of course. And there's,
Yeah.
a lot of the joy happens in making the record. I think when you're done with the record, there's definitely some joy in sharing it. I have a lot of joy in live shows, but as far as just the releasing of it and putting it out there on the internet and everything goes, that's probably where some of the least joy is in making a record.
That feels like work.
That feels like work, which is why people hire publicists and marketing firms, and not because they're like, oh, I need to be the most successful person ever. It's because you're like, I can't do it. Like, it's hard for me to even put in a minimal amount of effort to respect my work and show it to people, in a...
It takes a lot of courage. I see that.
Yeah.
I see that. So take us to the dark side then. Take us to the like where are the moments of self-doubt? Where are the moments of like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like when is, as an artist, when is it get to the darkest place?
It's kind of like, it's generally the ego getting all smashed up, and
Yeah.
a lot of those for me tend to be oh man, no one likes this.
Yeah.
That happens a lot in the submission process. Where you submit to blogs, you try and find a publicist, you try and find a booking agent, you give it to people who you want to review the album, who you kind of know this person, and you've sort of had like an acquaintance type relationship and build up some repertoire, and then they're like, hey, when's that album going to come out? And you're like, oh, funny you should ask. Like, here's a link. Go listen to it. I would love for you to give it a listen. It'll be out in a few months, and then it's crickets.
Yeah.
You don't hear
No
back
response.
from them for months. The album comes out, like, still no word, and you're just like, oh, they really hated it. They really hated that thing that I worked really hard on. Did I do a good job? Am I any good at what I did? And it's pretty easy for me at this point to recognize the tailspin of that, and just you don't try and put the kibosh on it, you just let it happen. And it's sort of like you step back and you see your ego going into this giant tailspin, and you step back objectively from it, and you're like, all right, let me know when you recover from that, because I'm over here and I'm fine. Like, I did what I did, and that's what I wanted to do. And
that's real, man. That's real. That's intense. That crazy thing in being an artist where we do what we do because we enjoy it. Like, I see you having a good time up there performing. You are. I see the joy, and you're conducting your band, the people that are in your performance. I see it, but then there's also this. It's this weird place of like, yes, I want to feed myself with my art, and I like it and I enjoy it, and I'm doing this for fun to pass through life. Yeah. But then, what if the world could have it too? It's this weird, it's this difficult thing, because we're not, I know you're not in this to just sell your product.
Right.
Like, that's a great benefit and a great thing that takes place.
Yeah.
And you've already used your music to raise awareness for different causes and do some cool stuff for charity, but it's that crazy spot of like, how much am I feeding myself, and how much of this is for me, and how much of this do I want to be for other people? That's a mind fuck.
It always helps me to look at, I've got a 4-year-old at home, and anytime it doesn't mean that he doesn't have private moments when he's playing or he's building something, but anytime he does something that he's really excited about, builds something, draws something, whatever, he has to find me, or he has to find my wife. He has to find someone and be like, hey, come look at what I did. And I think as a pessimist looking at that, you could be like, oh yeah, it's his ego craving attention, and to me, it's always felt, and maybe this is because I'm an artist and I'm trying to find like some sort of way to quantify what I do, but it always seems like there's more to it. There's a depth. We have a natural inclination as human beings that when we create something that brings us joy, we want to figure out how to share it with other people, because just maybe it'll bring you joy too.
I love that. That's a great illustration from your son.
Yeah.
I love that. I really like this record. I'm not just saying that because I'm your good friend. I felt privileged to be one of the first to hear it and spend some time with it. And I would say one of my reviews of this record is that's the best way to listen to this record is spending time with it and just putting it into your regular routine. There's a lot to it. It's a big, bold, complicated record, and but that's my style, and I really enjoy it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Where can people find you out in the interweb? Tell us all the spots. And,
yeah,
and what.
The website is just This Island Earth is Alive, and that has all the links to social on there. That's kind of the tag that like the username for Facebook and Instagram too, though, is This Island Earth is Alive.
Instagram, same thing.
Yeah.
This Island Earth is Alive.
Yeah, and then Spotify, This Island Earth. It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. I'm on Bandcamp too, which Bandcamp is my preferred. If you go to Bandcamp, you can pre-order the album right now, and then you get 2 of the singles as a download right away.
And any live shows coming up?
We're doing a big one on April 20th, 420. We're actually going to we have a couple friends coming through town too, and we're actually going to do a show with them, and I think we might actually do it at our studio again. We were looking at a couple other places, but we might do another studio show.
Eli Goodall, This Island Earth, and you can find him at This Island Earth is Alive on all platforms.